Hey there everyone, thank you for tuning in. So in this video I'm going to be talking about Chiron, and I have been doing a little bit more research looking deeply into Chiron and what it actually means, because I somewhat had a surface level perspective on it, and what really prompted me to go deeper into Chiron is it just went retrograde as I'm recording this July 16th, 2019, which actually happy lunar eclipse full moon, guys. But yeah, so Chiron went retrograde July 8th. So that was 2 weeks ago. And so I had noticed, looking at my own chart, just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on in my world, because this summer has been really intense. I've had a lot of transitions and shifts in my life. All of these retrograde planets that are taking place this summer, I just, wanted to really learn more. And Chiron was one in my chart that I felt that it was definitely activated at this point, and I wanted to learn more about Chiron. So I went on that venture, and now I am going to share with you what I came across. All right, so firstly, looking at the astronomy of Chiron. Chiron initially was categorized or labeled as an asteroid. However, once we learned a little bit more specifically about its composition, we decided to put it in a classification, a group called the Centaur objects, which is funny enough because Chiron's a centaur. And I'm wondering if Chiron was the first one they decided to start this group. And so, because Chiron, the mythology of Chiron is that he is a centaur. And so I just thought it was interesting. I was like, oh, that's cute. I like that. But so basically Chiron is basically an asteroid comet combination, which is this classification of centaur objects, because it is basically a comet that's the size of an asteroid. So the composition of Chiron is a mixture of water, ice, or more so. To get more deep into it, is carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, other frozen gases, organic material, and silicate dust. So basically, this is the composition of a comet nucleus, which is huge. I feel that I didn't write it down, but I believe that Chiron is 250 kilometers in diameter, I believe. Double check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. It was discovered in 1977 by American astronomer Charles Kowal. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And Chiron has an unstable eccentric orbit that passes through Saturn and Uranus within an orbital period of 50.45 years. Now, I was looking, which I knew before, but I was just wanting to get more information on how long Chiron stayed in the sign. And being that Chiron's orbit is really unstable and eccentric, it's just best to, if you're doing some research of the past when Chiron was in a sign before, it's best to look at that, or you want to look at it as a generational thing. Cafe Astrology has a Chiron sign tables that gives you the dates and times of the Chiron cycles in each sign, and also its retrograde cycles. Or you can just, take note, right now Chiron just entered Aries. Let's see. I know it was, I just passed my notes. So Chiron entered Aries, initially April 17th, 2018. And then it went retrograde, which it retrograded right back into Pisces, and then it re-entered Aries February 18th, 2019. And so it will be in Aries until June 19th, 2026. It'll be in Aries until June 19th, 2026, and it's going to enter Taurus. So just briefly talking about Chiron and Aries, this is very significant and synchronistic that I'm talking about this, and I'm wanting to look into Chiron. It's because Chiron, being that it started in Aries, is initiating a new cycle within our, journey of healing. So with Aries, it's the first sign of the zodiac, and it's a cardinal sign. So Aries is learning, that energy is learning who you're becoming or what you're becoming. and just trying to try out different directions to really see what will stick, what works for you. And so having this in Chiron, you'll see this come up within health, within wounding and trauma. And as I go through the archetype and just the depths of Chiron, what that means, this cycle of Chiron being in Aries is basically going to be focused on that energy. And just finding a new direction in how we approach our healing, how we approach the shamanistic journey within Chiron. So the archetype of Chiron, Chiron is the relationship, and it is the bridge between Saturn and Uranus. So basically it represents how we transcend our physical needs and access our spiritual story through spiritual wisdom, which exists in the Uranian field. So the orbit of Chiron, it goes between Saturn and Uranus. And so there's this theme of stagnation and growth. And so Saturn is that point at which, we are at the boundaries of our physical limitations of what we can see. And Uranus, once you move past Saturn, you have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which are essentially this invisible field, or the field of the subconscious. So Chiron points to the healing process of pre-existing memory fields. So Chiron, I like to say Chiron is a threshold between Saturn and Uranus. So Saturn, it correlates to conditioning and, structures and limitations within our consciousness or our subconsciousness. And it represents boundaries, which is not always a bad thing. But as I always say, we are here to evolve and break through boundaries and limitations. And so therefore, Chiron is that point in which you break through those limitations. And it's kind of like the gateway to this Uranian field, the Uranus field, and therefore, and so on. So it represents boundaries and limitations. When you have boundaries of Saturn, not limitations, boundaries and liberation. So you have boundaries that correlate to Saturn and liberation that correlates to Uranus. So crossing the Chiron threshold, you will experience a paradigm shift. And that's the whole point. It's like experiencing this new awakening, or just a shift in your belief systems and a release of what no longer serves you. And this is very important, and this is very timely at this point in time, because we are releasing so much of this Capricorn, Saturnian way of being on a collective level. We're releasing a lot of conditioning of the past. And I mean, decades and decades and centuries of this type of being and these belief systems. And we're moving towards this age of Aquarius, this Aquarius era. So this is very, very significant in this time period for us. And so the polarity point of Chiron, which is Chiron, is dealing with the big thing here, which I haven't gotten to yet, but Chiron is basically, it's the Chiron's purpose is a threshold between our personality and where we feel separate. And also then moving forward to awaken our spirituality. And so Chiron has to do a lot with the individuality. It's, as we get into the myth of Chiron, this is going to bring forth the woundings of Chiron. And so you have the first wounding being Chiron being rejected by his mother at birth because he frightened her due to his physical appearance as a centaur. So that's that initial ejection, and that happens at an early childhood, within your early childhood, and it can be as early as 3 months old. But this may be a result of something in your environment that is different from what is essential for the evolution of your individuality. So as you come here, as you're born into this existence here on Earth, you come here with a purpose. You come here with intention. However, you are conditioned by your childhood environment, by your family, by, the circumstance of where you live even, are you born in poverty? Are you born in wealth? And so that has a lot to do to shape who you are, shape your personality and your individuality. And so if you come in as something in particular, or with this very unique aspect of yourself, like even say with most children, when it comes to really embodying and really embracing their psychic gifts or their connection, because they're so pure, their connection to other worlds, or just, other entities, or, things that we don't see as we get older. We kind of like block that out. It's, in most families, it's kind of immediately shut down, or there's some kind of rational explanation for what's going on, or this imaginary friend. Yeah, that's normal. Like, kids have imaginary friends. It's not really anything there. But in actuality, you don't know if there's actually some kind of guide or something there that is, connecting with the child. And so that's immediately rejected. And so you begin to see how this shapes your personality and how some aspects of yourself are rejected. And then you have that second wound of Chiron, the second wounding, which is the psychological patterns passed down from ancestral roots. So, and this is really connecting to the Uranus aspect of Chiron, where, there's that Chiron, or Uranus is pretty much represents long-term memory. It correlates to long-term memory over lifetimes. And so there is a lot that is within the subconscious. And, in order to really liberate yourself, it's like facing what's in the depths of your consciousness. And a lot of that is, a lot of us, when I do my chart readings, I do notice with some individuals, like, hey, you're here to help heal your ancestral lineage. Like, I see that with a lot of folks. I'm pretty sure, all of us have some aspect of that, especially within that maternal line, which Chiron also connects to. And so, yes, that is briefly the Chiron wounding, which I'll go over in a minute in more detail. But so the polarity point, which with any particular energy you're looking at, if you're looking at a sign or a house, or a planet, to really understand how to bring things back into balance and moving away from extremes, and how to work on healing yourself, you're going to look to the polarity point, which is basically the opposite house or the opposite sign. And so for this particular archetype of Chiron, we're looking towards Leo and the sun. So Leo, we're thinking about the opposite of Aquarius. Leo, it's this polarity point. We're coming from a detachment and disassociation with energy and vibrations, to moving forward to the heart and fulfillment of life. So that's where the sun comes into play. And so with Uranus, we may tend to detach and disassociate and feel like the outcast, because our individuality has been rejected. However, it's like we need to really be in the moment and face these fears. And so we need to come back into our suffering, or what we're, separating ourselves from, and really come back that way through the heart. And so the goal is to be joyful and have an open heart. And so this is the evolution from wounded disassociation from love. So that's that rejection point, from whether it be from the mother or the father in early childhood, to, just like being in school and being different, and just not being able to feel comfortable in your own skin, and feeling misunderstood. So you're going from that and not feeling love to self-validation and creative self-actualization. So being able to actualize your creative self-expression. You also have the polarity point of Cancer as well, because we're talking about Saturn in Capricorn too. And so with Cancer, it is once again coming back to yourself, being your own nurturer. So if you're listening to this video at this time where, we have the nodes in Cancer, Capricorn, South Node being in Capricorn, North Node being Cancer, this is very timely for what we're going on with. And this is why this spoke so much to me. And the more research I did, I was just like, oh my goodness, like this is some valuable information at this time, because we're going through this process of healing and really coming back to, our source within, our source of power, and being our own nurturer. Being and really healing our relationship to our inner child, and healing those wounds, so that we can really express who we really are. And so Chiron's purpose, as I said before, is a threshold between our personality and where we feel separate, and awakening to our spirituality. So Chiron energy is deeply associated with ancestral karma. And so this is when you connect to that second wounding of Chiron, when he was accidentally hit by a poisonous arrow, causing him to suffer eternally because he was immortal. And so he could not heal himself. So he was always in pain, always struggling. And this kind of represents that subconscious, deep subconscious wounding that we carry from lifetime to lifetime, and it's just deep in there, and we haven't really brought it forth to heal. So it almost feels inaccessible. It almost feels like we can't heal ourselves because it's so deep in there, and there's so many layers that protect us from that. And so that's when that the second wounding comes into play, is regarding, that ancestral karma, so then it's like the family that we're born into, we definitely have some connection. For me, at times it's funny, I feel that I'm a first timer here on earth, and, that is a thing. And what these first timers do before they come to earth, they actually download, basically, I don't want to say fake memories, but they go through the Akashic record before they enter the body. If you're like really out there thinking like me, I'm an Aquarius sun, so I definitely, with the Scorpio rising, I definitely can go deep into these fringy kind of concepts, and it feels right to me. I'm like, why wouldn't that be the case? Because I feel that we choose to be here, and we choose, our purpose, our intentions, and so some people that do want to come here to help, and say they've never been to earth before, instead of coming as a brand new soul, they are, they first will go through, the Akashic record and be like, okay, I'm going to download these memories so that I know how the game works to a certain extent. Like, I have this connection to this family, especially if you're choosing the family that you come into. There's got to be a reason why you're choosing this family. And so, you want to help heal. I feel deeply that there's some aspect of wanting to help heal that lineage, whether it's like you've been born into a lifetime after lifetime, or it's just something about that particular lineage that calls you forth. And it's like, I want to help. Okay. And so with that in mind, this is part of that Chiron energy, is being able to, really start to dig through that trauma that's been passed off for lifetimes and lifetimes. So also, Chiron's purpose is to authentically understand your Chiron's purpose, to authentically understand your Chiron's purpose. It is a journey you have to take on solo. No one can tell you the right path or the true meaning. So the Chiron's purpose is truly a shamanistic journey. It is something that you have to do. It's like finding the truth within, finding the universe within, finding your source by going within. It's like, you can have people such as myself, or I do look at myself as a guide for experiences or circumstances like this one. However, I can look at your chart and give you some ideas, like, okay, it's consisting of this area of life. But when it comes to really going deep into that darkness, into the abyss, I can't tell you what's going to be there. Like, the one thing I can say, like, your fears, your layers of protection are going to be there, and you have to face those. If you go in this route, the one thing that I've been working on too, which actually I did today as part of my full moon release, is really writing down my fears. What is it that I fear? And luckily there were two main fears, but then there were different like layers, like, okay, this is my fear, and what am I afraid that the outcome will be of this fear, or like what will happen if this is true, or if I share this information, if I make myself vulnerable. And so I went through that, and that shit's hard. And that was like one of the layers, because one aspect is sharing this with another. And so it's just like, that's the hardest part. Like, going through it for me, it was hard. But then knowing that I have to like also share this information, that made it even harder. And that's like the sharing of the information for me, from my personal experience, is that's stepping into the darkness. That's facing that fear, because I have fears of what can happen. And it's just like, okay, if this happens, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. And I wrote this all down because I wanted to be clear on it. And then I burned it. So that's really important, you know, and this is that Chiron taking that shamanic journey and stepping into the darkness, you know, with this full moon that's happening today, actually, in a couple hours. It is about, you know, it is a gateway essentially to the underworld. We have all of these planets and we have Chiron retrograde. It is about going deep within and being able to really go to your fears, face your fears, go to that wounding, bring that up. Because I know for my own self, this has been something that's been suppressed for a couple years. So it's like bringing, or probably longer than that. I definitely feel the connection to lifetimes, especially seeing my chart. But this is something that I need to really bring up and release it. And it won't be released until I share it with others. So I can't tell you what that is for you. I can look at your chart and tell you, you know, this is, you know, as far as your Saturn, what this could be, as far as Uranus, what this could be. But, you know, you initially know what those fears are, like you know, whatever resonates for you, you know, if I was to look at your chart, then that would, I feel like that would pull it up to the surface and you would know what that is. But I couldn't, you know, actually tell you. So our unique path and evolution is within ourselves. To cross the Chiron threshold within your personal astrology, you must integrate a deep and intimate understanding of Uranus in your chart, as well as the emotional and psychological dynamic of your natal Saturn. So this enables you to become more sensitive to the invisible field of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So basically, that's the Chiron threshold. It definitely enables you to become more sensitive. When you're working with this Saturnian limitation and boundaries and conditionings and really going and breaking through that, you are going to be more sensitive, you know, to what comes forth between Uranus, any suppressed energy that's there, that's limiting your individuality, or something that's making you feel like you know you will be rejected. You know, with Neptune, that's these illusions and beliefs about yourself or your environment. You know, what's reality? It's the nature of your reality. Are you really seeing things for what they are? Do you think if you suppress this energy that, you know, everything's going to be fine? No, it's like facing the truth, facing, you know, like facing that what is reality. That's not reality. And then with Pluto, it's like really letting go of those emotional attachments and the false securities that make you feel empowered, because yeah, they may have in the past, but now it's time to evolve and work through, you know, in order to work through this trauma or this wounding, you will have to really move forward and step into insecurities. Okay. So the goal is to discover and become your unique self. This is the goal this is Chiron's goal, to help you do that, to really understand who you are meant to be in the world, separate from society, separate from what society has conditioned you to be. So yes, to really understand who you were meant to be in the world, aside from what society has conditioned you to be. So breaking through the conditioning, which is so Capricorn South Node, Cancer North Node. I just love this stuff. So Chiron wounding, we have, like I said, the initial wounding is a violation of boundaries. So this is Saturn and conditioning. So with that initial wounding, Chiron's mother rejected him at birth because he frightened her due to his physical appearance as a centaur. So just to make it brief on that part of the mythology, and I think I mentioned it in another video, but I believe that it was Kronos. Could be wrong. Kronos or Zeus, one of the two. Or Kronos or Saturn, I feel like is the same. However, there was a nymph, which was Chiron's mother at the time. He really wanted to mate. Kronos or Zeus or Saturn, one of the three. I know Kronos and Saturn are the same. So it's either Kronos to Saturn or Zeus. It might be, again, the story might be retold again as like Zeus. But anyways, wanted to mate with Chirons' mother. She turned herself into a stag. And so did he. And so he ended up raping her, supposedly. And she turned back to human, blah, blah, blah. So did he at some point. And then when she actually gave birth, she gave birth to a centaur. And it freaked her out. So, and then she rejected him and gave him away to Apollo, I think, and someone else. So yeah, that is a representation of that first initial wounding, pretty much early in childhood. So like I said, it could be as early as 3 months. So this represents a rejection of our own self, resulting in the inability to understand and heal it. Because it's like we had this instinct of who we naturally are, or who we were meant to be, you know, especially that young age, are still kind of like you're just getting into the body. So there's kind of this instinctive nature. However, it's rejected by those around you. And so this may be a result of something in your environment that is different from what is essential for your evolution for the evolution of your individuality. You may develop a sensitivity in your consciousness that leads to rejection or the forgetting of a deep, significant aspect of your individuality. So the goal here is to look deep into those wounds of rejection within us to truly move out of stagnancy and heal. So this correlates to the Saturn aspect of this Chiron. Saturn and conditioning. And so when you're looking at your fears, especially in regard to Chiron, you know, there's a fear of rejection. I'm going to share one of mine. For me, it's one of my Chiron points is around childbirth, and more so delivering a baby. Like, I'm not worried about, I have no anxieties about actually raising the child, but it's the process of giving birth. And I have Saturn and my Saturn's in Scorpio, which is in the first house. So when you think about Saturn, boundaries, limitations, also the connection to karma, it can also be an indicator of physical trauma. We have Scorpio, which is the reproductive organs or sexual organs. And then you have that first house, which is the physical body or even the identity. And so, and I feel like my Chiron or my Saturn is in opposition, not to the exact degree, but maybe in opposition of the Saturn placement. Actually, I might be wrong with that. Anyways, because my Chiron is in Gemini in the 7th house. Oh, actually, yeah, it might be like not to the exact degree, but in opposition of my Chiron. However, so I've always had this thing. I'm pregnant right now. This is my 3rd pregnancy, and I haven't carried a pregnancy to term. The first time I was 16 when I got pregnant, and my mom was not having that, so she pretty much made me get an abortion. I didn't want to. And I am grateful that, you know, that happened, because I don't even know if I'd be doing this right now or what the circumstance would be. But yeah, so that one didn't, make it to term. And then I was pregnant like 3 years ago, and I had a miscarriage about 4 months in, and I never passed it. The baby just stopped. And so, the baby was, like I had to have a procedure to get the fetus removed, which is basically was like an abortion. And then I'm pregnant again, and I learned that I have a fibroid cyst in my uterus, and it's pretty large. So I might have to, have a cesarean if it's blocking the baby from being able to travel through like the vaginal canal, or however that works. I'm really bad with medical terms, but yeah, so I've always had this weird feeling and this weird anxiety about delivering a child, about childbirth, that process. And so it's really interesting, just looking back at my chart and this Chiron thing going on in Chiron right now, the retrograde, and just really having to deal with this among other things. That's one of the things that's been coming up for me. And it's like having this whole fear, of childbirth, and like what happens if like this baby doesn't make it to term. And it's just, you see how this goes. So, and I feel in some way, I do feel rejected when it comes to motherhood. I'm like, am I not supposed to be a mother? Am I not fit for this? Like, I feel really good about raising children, but, you know, something's going on. There's a wound within, you know, this concept of having a child. And so for me, I know this goes back to past life. You know, my Saturn in Scorpio is conjunct my South Node in Scorpio. And so that conjunction there, that's definitely, you know, an indicator of a past life trauma, or something that happened in a past life. And so this is very potent for me right now. I'm really like taking the shamanic journey to really understand what the fuck is going on, you know? And I definitely feel like I've had trauma in the past within childbirth. Maybe I died in childbirth. Who knows? So yes, the point is to look deep into those wounds of rejection within us to truly move out of stagnancy and heal. Thank you so much for letting me always share my personal perspective and just like what I personally am dealing with these transits, because I hope it gives you an idea how sometimes some of these things can manifest. And I'm sharing this with you guys because I'm in it too. I'm not special. I'm not like it's not like I'm immune to any of this stuff. Like, I'm definitely going through it. Okay, so Chiron's second wounding is psychological patterns passed down from ancestral roots. So this is Uranus, and this is that point of liberation. So during the second wounding, like I said, Chiron was accidentally hit by a poisonous arrow, causing him to suffer eternally since he was immortal. He could not heal himself, is the way that story goes. Later down the road, he ends up taking the place of Prometheus and giving Prometheus his immortality so he can actually, like, you know, end his suffering in Prometheus' suffering. So there is a point of liberation. And I believe in the mythology, Chiron actually shoots a crow or eagle or whatever it was, raven, that kept eating Prometheus's heart or liver, I'm sorry. He shot the bird with the arrow right through the heart, which is really, it's like liberation through the heart. Like, even though it's kind of a morbid way to look at it, but like I was saying, that Leo archetype of like really going at your pain through, you know, the heart and having an open heart. And so within the second wounding, there are wounds that live within the deep subconscious that have existed over lifetimes. We have wounds you may have healed that will in turn help others heal that are struggling with similar wounding. So this is once again why I always love to share, one, everything that I'm learning, but also just my own personal experience with this, because this can help you, just give you some idea how to look at your own chart at where Chiron is, or how to, you know, just how this might manifest. And it's like, we're all dealing with deep, deep wounds. Okay, so this is the point where you can liberate yourself from repressed individuality by breaking down barriers and defense mechanisms that we hold in place that protect us from our vulnerability. So in order to liberate yourself is to free any of this suppressed energy, even though it might be fucking hard. It's hard to say what that looks like for you. And to quote Dr. Ariella Swartz, she says that growth often looks like a series of regressions into old patterns and progressions into new skills and self-discovery. It is normal to have periods of time when we don't feel strong, capable, resourceful, or resilient. Because guess what? Healing process is not linear, and this is when we're moving to Uranus. Uranus is non-linear. And so, yes, it is breaking through those barriers and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, but also, you know, having healthy boundaries. Like, you know, just because you share, you know, these deep parts of yourself, or you go into these deep parts of yourself, doesn't mean that you have to like suffer forever. The point is to step into that suffering and be able to understand it and heal it and get to the source and understand that it's not the end of the world. It's not that bad. You know, and then move forward and let it go. But that's when it, like, pain, you know, becomes suffering when you hold on to it. So the key is not to hold on to it. Okay, so Chiron and Saturn, this relationship here, This is the realm of finite, of physical limitations. This is the realm in which the metaphysical connects with the physical and vice versa. The physical connects with the metaphysical. So it is that threshold of like passing this boundary of Saturn where you have the physical limitations. But it's also like when you step into that Uranian field, when you step into the wounds and going into that long-term memory and wanting to bring things up, you're going to bring that as you really work through that. You're bringing that back into that physical world, into the physical realm of Saturn, and you're taking the self-responsibility and determination to be your own nurturer and heal yourself, you know? And so that's what it means to connect the metaphysical with the physical and vice versa. So this is the karmic archaeology. It's the history of our own karmic pattern. Chiron through Saturn is where we will manifest our fear of duality. So this is like right, wrong, good, bad. You know, that's whatever fears you have, even when you think about duality in this dimension, in this realm, on this planet, when duality is a big, big thing. And really understanding, like, as we move forward into these nonlinear fields, specifically Neptune, you really understand that duality isn't real. And the only thing that's real is love, and, you know, everything stems from source. So if it is something that you would look at that's considered bad, think of this as a call to heal, or a call to love, that is taken from Pamela Erlin, one of my dear teachers. I love her. She's awesome. She's like, either it's love or it's a call to love. So that's a good way to look at good or bad or right or wrong. So if it feels icky, there's something there that's like calling you to, you know, nurture this part of yourself or this person, or, you know, looking at adversary energy as a call to love instead of like really rejecting it and being in fear of it. So it is when we get stuck in the conflict of woundedness and darkness. Sorry, I worded this sentence wrong. So let me start over. Chiron through Saturn is where we will manifest our fear of duality. It is when we get stuck in that conflict of woundedness and darkness because of limitations in our awareness. So I apologize, take really good notes as I was transcribing this. So yeah, it's basically representing where we might get stuck in our woundedness or our darkness, because we have not really stepped into our full awareness. There are limitations within our awareness. So hopefully that makes sense. So we must enter our darkness, bringing the fear of what we perceive is going to occur to find great insight within our story. So that's something, yeah, it's like bringing that fear into the physical, bringing that into the light, bringing it up. So for me, like I said, that fear of childbirth is more so like, for me, not ignoring it and just focusing on what I can do to stay healthy, focusing on like positive things, like what it would be like to when I finally get to hold my baby and just do all of these amazing things, and just like thinking about that stuff more so, and that's bringing that fear, because it's like my focus is on like, what if it doesn't make it to term, or what if this thing happens, or what if I have to get a C-section? Like, it's focusing on the negative, on the fear. But once I like bring that up and sit with it and release it, then I can start focusing on the good things. So Chiron and Uranus, this is the realm of liberation. This is the realm of deconditioning. This is the realm in which the subconscious merges with the conscious, bringing about deep awakening. So this is when we bring things up to the surface, you know, bringing forth things that are in our long-term memory. So ancestral karma, you know, anything that's connected to our just lifetimes, our ancestral lineage, things like that, bringing that up to the surface so that we can get a deeper understanding. And this is where that paradigm shift happens. And so this is a subconscious state of awareness, long-term memory, and memories on a cellular level. So this is within our DNA. And so also there's an aspect too of this wounding being connected to the mother wound, or our mother's wounding, or that maternal line, and then their mother's wounding. So it's like being within even the womb. It's like basically absorbing that energy, which is something I have to personally sit with, because I am a believer that the spirit is not always in the, as a woman carries her, carries her baby to term within those 9 months. I feel that the spirit of the baby is not always in that body, that fetus. I feel that it comes and goes. And that could also be a reason too. I mean, maybe it's something that helped me process when my baby's heart stopped. Like, that was a message that came through me when I was really working through that, was that the vehicle, meaning the fetus, wasn't strong enough. So it couldn't, that spirit, whatever was choosing to connect and be a part of my family, it was too strong for the body that was created. And so I do feel that the spirit isn't always existing within the fetus during the whole pregnancy. It kind of comes and goes. But that's my own personal perspective. However this comes forth for you, definitely sit with that with yourself. Okay. This is why this is this own unique journey. Okay. So enter the darkness. Okay. This is Chiron and Uranus still. So we enter darkness in a state of surrender, merging with suffering, woundedness, and sadness that has been held within you. So, this is really the point of which you sit with that and surrender to it, and really make a point to understand, what is this suffering? What is this woundedness? Connect with your guides, connect with your higher self, like do some astral travel or something in that nature, where you can really start to do that work, take that shamanistic journey to really understand what's going on. So wrapping this up, how to heal. So the path to healing is to step into your suffering straight through the heart. Like I said, it is a shamanic experience. So only you can really take this path, and it is scary, but it's definitely worth it, because you will come out a different person. You choose to no longer give life force energy to something that makes you feel separate from your true authentic self. So you might feel rejected. Someone might reject you, but guess what? Like, fuck them. You have to choose you, and you cannot put energy into a relationship or work or something of that nature that is really pushing you away from being who you actually are, or something that's just holding you down and holding you back, whether it's emotionally, physically, or spiritually. Let go of any attachments to an idea, experience, or perception that you hold about yourself. Face your fears. Work out cellular memory of your maternal wounds. So that could even be like having a therapist, having someone to talk to, whatever that looks like for you. And a self-inquiry question is, what are you carrying in your energetic field, and how is that defined by your ancestral lineage? So by energetic field, I am referring to the Uranian field. And this is basically that field that's within the subconscious, the deep subconscious, and that long-term memory. So as you're doing this work, asking yourself, what am I carrying in this energy field? And is it defined by my ancestral lineage? This is something that goes back. So for me, with this childbirth wound that I have going on, I'm wondering if, what's funny is that my mother, when she had me, it was fine, and I think she was pretty young. So, but there's a sister that died in between. There was a sister in between myself and my brother, and my mom had tumors within her uterus, like a bunch, and she went into early labor at 7 months in, and it could have been the pregnancy could have been, or the baby could have been saved. But she had it at home, and anyways, it's kind of tragic. But so when I think about it, I was like, oh yeah, my mom had some trauma too, and she had really bad tumors within her uterus, and she got her uterus removed at some point because it was giving her bad periods and stuff like that. So when I think about it just now, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I have to dig more into that, and I'm wondering if my grandmother had any wounds and so forth. So yeah, that is one way to really sit with this Chiron energy, and it can be very intense. However, it's definitely worth the work and the journey. And thank you again for letting me use my own personal story. Thank you for tuning in. If you really enjoyed this video, please subscribe and please like this video. If you are interested in a reading with me, I'll put a link below to my booking site. I'm almost on my website. I'm just waiting for the domain to transfer because I went to a different system. And so that should be up very, very soon, which is uraniauniverse.com. And yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments, definitely leave them below. I would love to connect with you guys. Take care.